Same as it ever was. Same as it ever was. Welcome back to another episode of We Don't Know What to Watch. I'm Noah Saturn, and this is our mini-sode where we just talk about stuff we've been watching lately. This is called What You Watchin', and with me is the David Bowie to my David Byrne, Kyle Mulford. How you doing, Kyle?
It's nice here on Mars. There's no coronavirus.
Mm-hmm. Thank you,
I'm
man.
doing okay.
Yeah,
I'm.
so I guess with the mini-episode, want to just get right into it?
Let's get right in there.
Okay, I'll go first because I watched 17 movies this time, but most importantly, I remembered to write them all down.
That is a lot of movie watching in 2 weeks.
Yeah, sometimes you just have a lot of time on your hands.
Sometimes when you're socially isolating, you have a lot of time on your hands.
Yes, I've got too much time in my hands.
What have you been watching?
All right, we'll just start rolling through them. So first one I watched was Dilwale, Dulhania, La Jeunet. I think that's probably the wrong pronunciation. This is a Bollywood film from 1995 called, and in English it translates to "The Big Hearted Will Win the Bride," and it is a big old romantic 3-hour Bollywood musical. Tons of fun about two kids who meet on like a trip through Europe, and then and then the drama starts when after they fall in love when it turns out she's already in an arranged marriage to like someone else, so then he has to sort of sneak in and try and sneak his way into the family to help prepare for the marriage and then kind of charm his way through it.
Well,
Big
fun.
numbers, big emotions. If you like old school musicals, this is right there. And of course music is really catchy too.
I might have to check that. I don't watch enough Bollywood. I have seen Bollywood, and a lot of times they're a lot of fun.
Yeah, I don't watch enough Bollywood. That's sort of a cinematic blind spot for me, among other things. That and
Well,
like
cool.
movies from the 2000s, but that's another.
I
I don't
don't
know what.
watch new stuff.
So let's see. So no going on is Invasion of Astro-Monster, which is another Godzilla film. So I'm still working through my big 15 film Godzilla box set.
Nice. I don't even know that title.
This one comes after I don't remember which number it is in the series. I can quick check here.
Do the numbers even mean anything after a while?
Well, they do because if you can't, well, I don't know. There's like the continuity. There's like three different continuities, maybe four. First continuity is from the original film through like Terror of Mechagodzilla. Second continuity goes with the original film, then jumps to Return of Godzilla in 1984, then runs through like the early 90s, and then there's Godzilla. Then there's like the Godzilla 2000s, which is starts from the first one and then jumps to 2000.
So it's the Halloween series
Kinda.
because there's about 13 different branches off of that too, and three branches go off of the original movie.
Yeah, it is. It is kind of like that. So here we
Was this
go.
one
So
any good?
I enjoyed it. This one was number 6 in the series. And this one is where the basic story is aliens come down to Earth and they're nice. They're saying, hey, there's like this weird monster we call Monster Zero destroying our planet. Can we borrow Godzilla and Rodan?
Oh, fun.
So they do. And then they beat up, and the monster is King Ghidorah. So they beat up King Ghidorah in space.
I
And
mean,
then after that, the aliens use them some sort of ray or whatever to hypnotize them, and then they set loose Godzilla and Rodan and the King Ghidorah on Earth. Oh no!
there goes
So,
Space
so
Tokyo.
yeah, so then the humans have to work to find sort of get rid of the hypnotizing spell or whatever, and then everything's happy, and then they beat up King Ghidorah again
Awesome.
and beat up them aliens. Next up is Cookie, directed by Susan Seidelman. This one is about a mob princess and after her dad just gets out of jail, and then she loses her job, so she ends up becoming like his professional driver and gets involved in the mob life. And her dad is played by Peter Falk.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it's really funny. Definitely kind of plays into those mob kind of tropes, and it feels like almost like it's a parody of something like Goodfellas, even though it came out like a year before.
Okay, so this is like late 80s.
Yeah, 1989, I believe.
Huh. I haven't heard of that one.
And Susan Seidelman also directed Desperately Seeking Susan and Smithereens, which we talked about last time.
Oh, so you're looking into her filmography a little more.
At least those two,
I
just
did see
because.
that Smithereens is streaming somewhere. I can't remember where. I mean, you'd have to check online, but it is streaming.
Next up is Maniac from 1967. And this is an interesting kind of thriller. I believe it was made in England, and it takes place in the French countryside where like a painter is kind of hanging out with just trying to figure out what to do with his life, an American painter in this French village, and then he starts kind of having an affair with the woman who owns this inn because they think they're each other's hot. So of course that's what you do in France is you have an affair, and then like she starts getting threatening letters from her husband who's in prison from murdering people and trying to murder her again, and so they have to break him out of prison. And then they've got a crazy guy to deal with, in addition to trying to still deal with their affair and also save the woman's daughter. So it's actually pretty dark for a film of that era. It's definitely, the Hays Code is gone, so some of the murders that they do show, or at least the parts that they show, are pretty gruesome. There's one part involving a blowtorch.
Oh wow. So this
Yeah.
is like so it's a dark movie called Maniac, and then in the 80s they made another dark movie called Maniac.
Hmm.
And then what in the 2000s the 90s or 2000s they remade the 80s into another dark one with Elijah Wood called Maniac. But I
So I
suppose.
think there's Maniac from the 1930s too.
And then there's Maniac Cop 1, 2 and 3.
That's two classics.
There's a lot of
Yeah,
maniacs
there's
out
a
there.
movie called Maniac from 1934, so I guess it's just a popular name.
I guess. That one sounds quite interesting.
Next
What
up is
was it as good as it sounds?
It's interesting. I mean, visually, it's pretty striking. There's a couple of fun twists to it, especially just kind of the image of just the bad guy wearing like sunglasses or something. Then you see like the light from the blowtorch just kind of like reflecting off of him. It's pretty creepy.
Nice.
Next up is Sanjuro from 1962. It is a sequel to is by Akira Kurosawa. It is a sequel to Yojimbo, which is his Fistful of Dollars, even though it came before Fistful of Dollars.
Yeah, I mean, everything was his first, right?
Pretty much, at least Sergio Leone liked him a lot, as did everyone else. So this one's fun because this is kind of him back to his wandering around. Shows up, and there's like a small group of samurai who believe that their master has been taken by these evil, corrupt members of the clan. So he has to help them up. He has to help them kind of find out a way to sort of take back their clan and root out all the corruption. But what's really funny about it is that these guys are kind of dumb. So half the time our main character is just like sitting around. It's like, no, don't do that, you idiots. I gotta give me some sleep. It's like we wait for this because they're always like really excited. The guy's like, no, you'll get yourself killed. Stop it. So he's kind of like almost like a grumpy teacher. It's like so that's pretty great, and it's Kurosawa, so it's good.
And I think a lot of Kurosawa is streaming, like maybe on Canopy, because I think I've seen that Sanjuro is streaming somewhere. I
Mhm.
have not seen Yojimbo or Sanjuro, but I have seen Kurosawa obviously, but those are two that are still on my list.
Yep, they definitely work together as a great double feature. Next, shifting gears, I saw Stop Making Sense, the classic concert film by the Talking Heads, directed by Jonathan Demme. And what can I say except that it's awesome? You got some great music and some really interesting visuals to go with it, and of course, the big suit.
The Big Suit. This is one I have seen, because it's weird and it's from the 80s. And I love the Talking Heads. If you're a fan of the Talking Heads at all, I highly recommend you watch this movie. And it's so expertly directed by Demi.
And not to mention, like, just it's extremely well staged because it's shot from a theater. I think it was the Pantages Theater in Los Angeles. Extremely well staged because I just like how it starts, where it's just kind of like David Byrne in a boom box, and then it kind of slowly, as they perform more songs, and more of the band comes together, and they put it all together.
Yeah, and I don't think that it was all done in one night, which is amazing because it all looks like one concert just continuously.
Yeah, I think it's what was it? They had three different shows, and then to have less cameras on set, they like filmed it from one side one night, and then kind of one side another night, and then I sure just probably did more stuff in the middle of the third night.
Yeah, and that's why I said it was so well directed by Demi, because you don't realize it's from different shows. It seems like it's just one long concert. And you just see him progressively getting more and more sweaty and just like, and you cannot believe how much energy that man has.
Yeah, it's definitely it's just, and he dances, but it's just kind of like weird and bizarre in a modern way. Like, is he dancing? Is he seizing, or both?
It might be both. but it's all the better for it because it's so much fun to watch.
Next up is Fallen Angel from 1945. This one is
So not
about
Angel Has Fallen from last year.
no, not Angel Has Fallen. This is from 1945. It's a noir. Once again, I really like noir. Turner Classic Movies has a weekly noir program they call like Noir Alley, where they present a noir movie once a week, and I always try and record it and watch it from the DVR. So that's always a good time. And this one is where about do I remember what this one is even about? Point is, it's good. Had Dana Andrews. If you like noir, definitely watch it. Oh no, now I remember. It's about a sort of a drifter comes to town and then kind of gets involved with two different women. Marries one because she's rich, but he wants to kind of marry one, take the money, and go with the other who's kind of younger and more good looking. Then what happens when the good looking one dies? And then of course she's the prime suspect.
Cool. I love a good noir too. I haven't
Mhm.
watched one in a while, but that's one thing that I miss about cable is having stuff like that because sometimes you get like Turner Classic. I know when they do those noir movies, they like to get stuff that's a little more obscure that sometimes a lot of times isn't even on a streaming service or available to rent at your library or wherever. And I kind of miss having cable just for some of those kind of movies that you can't find other places.
Yeah, what's nice about the host Eddie Muller is that he actually also runs something called the Noir Foundation, where they have noir film festivals every year. And he's as part of his foundations, they actually kind of find these old movies and restore some of them. All about bringing more obscure ones to light, make it pretty interesting.
Awesome.
Next up is It Came from Outer Space from 1953, and it has a theremin. So sci-fi movie with a theremin is always good.
Exactly.
Based off of a Ray Bradbury short story. Aliens come down to Earth. They start replacing people with like these weird, creepy body doubles where they look the same but they don't act the same. They aren't necessarily body snatchers, and it kind of goes in a bit of a twist ending that I wasn't really expecting, and pretty mature for a film, from a sci-fi film, especially from that age. That might be because it's from Bradbury.
Yes, yeah. I mean, if anybody's familiar with him, it's he's got some good works out there. I've always been a fan. I've read Fahrenheit 451 several times.
Yeah, I also really like Something Wicked This Way Comes.
Yeah, I think I read that in like middle school, and I think that's the last time I read it. So I don't remember it real well, but I know that I liked the story. I'm just a fan of that old 50s, 60s sci-fi stuff.
Yeah, I forget it. That's like a perfect book to read in like early October to get ready for Halloween, because that's when it takes place.
Okay.
Really interesting time, and just very great atmosphere and a lot of other things. Next up is The Return of Dr. X from 1939, and this one is like a crappy horror film about like trying about kind of blood and all that stuff. But more importantly, it's a crappy horror film that has Humphrey Bogart in it.
Oh, wow, that's interesting. When is
Yeah,
this
so
from?
this is 1939. So it's 2 years before Maltese Falcon. So he was kind of working his way up still, and he considered it to be one of the worst films he ever made.
Makes me want to watch it even more.
Yeah, it's silly. It's only an hour long. A good time, but it's kind of fun to see like him almost like this Igor creepy lab assistant guy.
That's crazy. That'd be fun to watch.
Then there's Gentlemen Marry Brunettes, which is sort of pseudo, kind of not really a sequel to Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. Because Gentlemen
I,
Prefer Blondes was a book, and there was a book called Gentlemen Marry Brunettes, but it was made by. But this one is made by a different studio, so they couldn't really connect it that much.
oh, okay. I was just going to make the joke, and then you said it's kind of connected.
Yeah.
Was it any good?
I mean, Jane Russell came back playing a different character who's still kind of related. It's supposed to be like the daughters of one of the two women from Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
Okay.
And this time they're both brunettes instead of a blonde and a brunette. It's okay. Songs are okay. It's kind of fun. Maybe watch it as a curiosity, but it really doesn't hold up to something like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, which is definitely still extremely watchable and just tons of fun. Next is A Face in the Crowd from 1958, and this is about a woman who's a reporter, and she kind of goes to like a jail in Arkansas, just trying to do like a This American Life kind of voice of the people sort of show, talking to the common man, and she meets this drunk, and this drunk kind of has a great voice, and he's a good singer, pretty charismatic. So then she ends up sort of turning them into this like media figure first on the radio, then he gets a giant television show, gets a huge platform, then he starts kind of becoming corrupt, realizing how much he can influence people and sort of first selling them things, and then kind of involving a plot involving trying to get a U.S. senator elected president. And as he kind of gets crazier and crazier, things get worse and worse. It's very sinister and very cynical look at sort of the power of television, the power of fame and media presence. But most importantly, the drunk, who is effectively, like a bird, at least becomes a bad guy towards the end, is played by Andy Griffith.
I was gonna say, is this the Andy Griffith movie?
Yes, it
Because
is.
I have heard about this one for a long time, and I have not been able to get my hands on it, and I've really wanted to. Did you find this on streaming, or did you rent this?
I got this. I recorded this off of Turner Classic Movies, but I believe it's streaming on the Criterion channel at least.
Okay. I do not have the Criterion channel, but that's good to know for, others who might have that channel.
But
Because
yeah,
this has been on my radar for a long time, and I just haven't been able to get my hands on it.
so yeah, this is pretty nasty. It's a nasty, cynical little movie, but it's really good. I mean, the only complaint I have is that by the end, he loses everything. But I feel like if this film were remade today, he would have just ended up president or something.
Yeah, I wonder.
All right, moving on. We've got Paper Moon from the early '70s. It's Ryan O'Neal Tatum, directed by Peter Bogdanovich, about a con man and a girl who may or may not be his daughter, how they kind of life on the road together. And it's a lot of fun, very charming comedy between them. They have great interplay and how she becomes just as good at being a con man as he is.
Okay.
And also has a brief appearance by Madeline Kahn, so it's cool to see her, a very early role.
This is another one. You've got a lot of them that you've watched that are on my list of stuff that I need to see.
hmm
I have not seen this because didn't Tatum O'Neal win the Oscar? Wasn't she like one of the youngest to win an
She
Oscar?
is the youngest to win an Oscar for this, for
Is
her
she
role.
still the youngest?
Still the youngest at the moment, so she hasn't been beaten yet.
Okay, so yeah, definitely that's still on my list. So
A lot of fun. Also, some great era music too. Black and white, shot in the Midwest, so of course it looks gorgeous. It's pretty. I mean, I could just go out there and shoot videos of like the road in
like
just
like
like a road
Nebraska,
outside of town. Yeah, like a lot of probably where Nebraska got some of its influence.
yeah, because that was another pretty movie.
Yep. For some reason, the Midwest looks good in black and white. Next is Moonstruck with Cher and Nicolas Cage
Sharon
from
Nicholas
1987.
Cage.
And this one is just super charming and, gave Cher an Oscar, and rightly so. She gives a wonderful performance.
Yeah, I did like this one. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I do remember enjoying this one a bit.
And one of the kind of surprises I watched, other than like, because she was 41 when this was made, Nicolas Cage was 23, so good on you, Cher. And this is kind of fun, Nicolas Cage and his broody grumpiness, because like he's a baker who lost his hand, so he's got a wooden hand, and that plays in a little bit.
Oh, that's right. I remember that now. I was having trouble remembering what any of the plot was, but I do remember that now.
Yep, and there's also a great dinner scene where like Cher's character's mom is out at a dinner just by herself, and then she ends up meeting and having dinner with another guy who had just was like a professor who had just gotten water thrown in his face because apparently that happens with it all the time, and that's actually played by John Mahoney, who of course is most remembered for being Frasier's dad.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And he gives a pretty honest and sincere performance. It was one of my favorite moments in the movie. He gave kind of like this little monologue. And let's face it, John Mahoney's a pretty charming guy.
He is, except when he's yelling at Frasier.
I should
Now
watch Frasier
even then
first.
he's charming, right?
Yeah. All right, next up is Body and Soul from 1925. This was directed by Oscar Micheaux, who was a pioneering black director in the silent era. Something you probably should have heard about in film school, but instead we just talked about D.W. Griffith, so boo!
Let's talk about the racist.
Yeah, so this one it's a pretty nasty film too, a pretty racy subject matter. It's about a preacher in Georgia, southern, and obviously a black preacher in Georgia who's secretly a con man and a thief and just a really nasty dude. So I mean, this is a pretty so talking about corruption in the church is pretty touchy subject matter back then, and even kind of now it's pretty touchy subject matter for some people.
Huh.
So definitely recommend that one. I mean, there's even a rape scene in this film. It's like, whoa, they're going for it.
Oh my. Yeah, some of those early movies they could get away with quite a bit.
Yep, silent era, pre-code, you could get away with some stuff. And the preacher is played by Joe Robeson, and Joe Robeson had a very long theater career before this, and worked with Eugene O'Neill, And then he even had a great, wonderful career because he was a great singer, and you might recognize him as the singer who sings Old Man River from the 1936 version of Showboat.
Oh, cool.
So he had a great career too. And next up is Ebirah, Horror of the Deep, which is next in line of the Godzilla series. And this one is kind of like a weird spy movie where like three guys go to find. There's a guy and his two buddies who try and go and find his brother who's stuck on an island somewhere, lost at sea. They wash up on this island. Turns out there's like these evil bad guys there, and then they have to sneak around the bad guys and work their way to find their brother and save because they're enslaved local islanders there to do their evil bidding because they want to launch nukes at Japan or something. So it's kind of riffing on James Bond because James Bond was just getting started back then and still really popular.
Yeah.
And the Ebirah himself is like a giant lobster.
Is he a rock lobster?
I assume so. And then so Godzilla's in it, but it's kind of not necessarily a Godzilla movie. He just kind of happens to be in it. So at one point, to help fight Ebirah, the horror of the deep, they have to awaken Godzilla, and they use like a sword on top of a cave because he's sleeping in the cave, and they connect wire to that to sort of electric shock him to shock him up. But it's weird because technically this movie was originally supposed to star King Kong, but they couldn't get the rights to use King Kong, so they just swapped in Godzilla. And even before Godzilla versus King Kong was at one point supposed to be Godzilla versus Frankenstein. So Kong has electric powers in that one, probably because it's left over from Frankenstein, and now Godzilla gets woken up with electricity because it's left over from King Kong.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird.
How
And
many?
there is a Japanese kaiju movie about Frankenstein.
How many movies are there where they have to wake up Godzilla to fight something else?
It happens a lot, unless the series is rebooted again and becomes a bad guy for a while. And lastly is Son of Godzilla, and this is the one where people are doing
Gadzuki.
like not really. This one's called Nilla or Manila by fans, but he's never given a name. And this one involves Godzilla and his son on an island that they eventually call Monster Island, and it's because of a weather experiment. There's some radiation, and it takes these big mantises and turns them into like these giant mantis monsters. So Godzilla wakes up and has to protect his son and kind of parent his son. Definitely has a weirder, more anthropomorphic quality to it because he's trying to teach his son how to breathe with his radioactive atomic breath. So Godzilla does it to show it, and then his son can't really do it. He can only blow like smoke rings. So then he steps on his son's foot, and that gets him to do it.
I've got a very important question.
Yes.
Who is the mother?
It's never found out. It's just an egg. I don't know. Maybe maybe Godzilla reproduces asexually, like just drops an egg and then it fertilizes itself. Or maybe it's like a sponge. He just has budding. So that's all of them. So yeah, a lot of movies.
A lot of Godzilla.
Skip one. Did I mention Rodan?
No.
Oh, I also watched Rodan, which is Rodan, the first. It's another kaiju movie. Kind of Rodan showed up here before he first showed up in Godzilla movies. So it's part of the Godzilla cinematic universe, I guess, or just crossovers. And yeah, Rodan, giant bird, born from a volcano / asteroid, flies around. He's kind of like supposed to be like the supersonic creature, so he flies really fast and blows everyone over, starts pecking at people. Have to fight him, they have to kill him, good old yummy kaiju stuff.
Cool.
So what about you? I've talked for almost 28 minutes.
I did not watch quite as much as I usually do because I've been playing a lot. Again, more games with my friends online.
You're not allowed to have friends, Kyle.
Oh man, especially during social isolation. I'm not breathing too hard through the Skype machine.
Mm-hmm.
But I did watch a few. Starting out, I watch a lot of. I show a lot of movies to my daughters. My wife and I do show them a lot of older movies, and so we watch Some Like It Hot with them. I think my youngest, my 8-year-old, got a little bit bored, but my 10-year-old really enjoyed it, and I was so happy when one of the best final lines of a movie just landed for her, and she just cracked up at the "Nobody's Perfect" line. So it's obviously, if you haven't seen it, this is streaming on Amazon Prime. You got Jack Lemmon, Tony Curtis running away from mobsters, and they dress like women, get on a train with a female band down to Florida, and they run into Marilyn Monroe on the train. And of course, one of them falls in love with her, and chaos ensues. And it's really funny, really charming. Just a great movie.
Yeah, nobody played off each other quite as well as it seemed like as Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis. They just work together extremely well, and then Marilyn can holds her own as well too. So it's just really funny overall. Lots of great stuff.
Yeah, and like I said, one of the best finishing lines of a movie, just
Hmm.
tops it right off.
Also, I have it on Criterion Blu-ray when it's still in shrink because I discovered I have like 8 or 9 Criterion Blu-rays, maybe even 10 that are still in shrink.
Well, that's definitely one you need to open up and watch again.
Oh yeah, and that was
Um,
directed by Billy Wilder, who just did a little bit of everything. Because he also did stuff like Double Indemnity. It's from the same guy.
Billy Wilder is one of my all-time favorite directors. I did a couple of years ago actually go through his entire filmography of everything I could at least get my hands on. Because yeah, he did comedies like Apartment and The Apartment and Some Like It Hot. He did like you said, noir like Double Indemnity, which is one of the best noir movies. He did a really great movie called Ace in the Hole,
Yeah, that's a good one.
and of course Sunset Boulevard. He did so many different genres and was able to bounce back and forth from different things, and he doesn't really have a lot of bad movies. Most everything he did was at least good, if not great. So definitely a director to check out if you don't know his stuff very well.
Yeah, him and Howard Hawks kind of worked in some of the same era, and Howard Hawks was also one who could bounce around and do whatever he wanted to.
Yeah, because I think Howard Hawks was the one that did Bringing Up Baby,
He did do
wasn't
Bringing Up Baby and a billion other things, and he also even
he? Yeah.
did The Thing from Another World.
Yes, that's true, and that's great too. And didn't he also do now I'm His Girl Friday?
That does sound correct. Yeah, this.
Because I think if you watch The Thing from Another World and His Girl Friday, the snippy dialogue, one's a sci-fi movie, one's a fast talking newspaper movie, but it's very similar dialogue, and I think they were both written by the same person too. And
Nice.
so yeah, I watched the Thing from Another World recently, and it was and I was like, this really, it feels like I'm watching a sci-fi space monster movie with not a space movie because it's the thing here, but it felt like it still felt like His Girl Friday, and I was like, I looked into it, and I think it was the same writer who did both movies. So
Nice. I always enjoy when people collaborate more than one time and just because then you can kind of see their creative energies and see push it in different directions. It is
yeah,
always fun to see creative collaborations via screenwriters or just everybody, even when it's just like because with the Godzilla movies, for a lot of them, at least some of the early ones, were all directed by the same guy, and the effects team was all run by the same. And it was the same effects team too.
oh yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and sometimes when you get people working together, they just get better and better. And then there are some people that just work better with a particular person, and then
Hmm.
they go off and do something else, and like it doesn't jive as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, good collaborations are fun to watch continue on.
Yeah, and that kind of is more important, at least to me, than sort of the quote unquote auteur theory, because auteur theory does exist in the sense that there are some people like, I mean, Hitchcock is the classic example. Everything you can tell Hitchcock from Hitchcock, but then, like, what would Hitchcock be also without someone like his composers or his cinematographers or some of his actors? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Because some of the most iconic stuff from Hitchcock is, I mean, take Psycho for example. You don't remember, oh, you know Hitchcock directed it, but the thing you think of first with Psycho is that piercing violin screeching
yeah,
score
Bernard
from
Herrmann,
Bernard
who's
Herrmann.
just one of the best composers out there.
Yeah, definitely. But moving on to something a little less classy, my daughter Elsa and I continued on our Tremors journey with
Nice.
Tremors 5 Bloodlines. And this is they discovered a even more aggressive and advanced species of tremors over in Africa. And so he goes over there with a cameraman, and then you find out that the cameraman is actually his son from a fling he had in Florida 40 years before, and the cameraman is played by Jamie Kennedy.
Oh boy.
I, you know, I could. of the series, I kind of like this one quite a bit, just because it was a little slicker. It was made in 2015, and the effects were a little better. So I mean, there was a lot of CGI in this one, but it was 2015, so it was a little slicker than some of the older 90s and early 2000s CGI in some of these Tremors movies. So it was fun for the series.
I'm still mad that that one pilot that they made never got picked up, or they even brought back Kevin Bacon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for like a Tremors TV show. So that was pretty recent, just like a couple years ago, I think, where they made that pilot. You can watch it for free, but it was never picked up for a series by Sci-Fi. So and I just because
I
they even brought back Kevin Bacon.
See, I would love, since Michael Gross is still doing these movies. Like the number 6 came out in like 2018. I haven't watched that one yet, but I would love to see them make like a seventh one and have Kevin Bacon come back,
Obvious,
even if it was a small role.
even if he gets like killed by a graboid or something.
Yeah, exactly. Uh, Another rewatch, a rewatch for me on Amazon Prime. The Birdcage is streaming from 1996. Robin
Nice.
Williams, Nathan Lane, Hank Azaria, and I don't care how stereotypical Hank Azaria's gay man is in this. If you do not crack up at Hank Azaria in this, I don't know. He is hilarious, and Robin Williams and Nathan Lane are both great in this movie.
I mean, talk about playing off each other. That is some great energy.
Yeah. No, it's, Robin Williams is a straight man playing a gay man, trying to be a straight, or trying to pretend that he's a straight man for Gene Hackman's Politician. And like, he just does such a good job in this movie. As this is one of my favorite Robin Williams.
I definitely still need to see that one, but that is great casting with Gene Hackman as having to be kind of the stiff.
Yeah, yes. There's just an awkward dinner scene too, and everything. And so, and Robin Williams' son in the movie is getting married, and he's getting married to a young Callista Flockhart. So,
Interesting.
but yeah, if you haven't seen The Birdcage, it's on Amazon Prime now, and it is so good. Another movie that I watched on Amazon Prime was The Goldfinch from 2019. I don't know if you've heard of this one.
No, but I heard it was a movie.
Yeah, and that's kind of what it was. I'm not going to recommend this. I'm actually going to recommend stay away from it. It's Ansel Elgort. They try and play it as this big mystery, but as a young kid, he is in an explosion in an art gallery, and his mom dies. And before he leaves the art gallery, some guy that was also in there says, "You got to take this painting, blah blah blah," and he steals a painting called The Goldfinch. Well, if it was just about that, this is based off of a book, and I don't know if they go into the other parts of the other storylines more, but there are so many storylines. There's something with his father that doesn't go anywhere. There's relationships with two different girls that just don't go anywhere. If they would have focused on the core concept of the painting and what that all meant, and just did that and cut a lot of time, because it's over 2 hours long, and all the stuff that didn't go anywhere just made it feel like it dragged, and they really could have cleaned this up. And you can go through the movie, and how sometimes you go, oh, that really needs to cut some time. No, I could specifically tell you what to cut out of this movie. That just didn't go anywhere. So
Didn't Roger Deakins do the cinematography?
yeah, and I mean, that
At
looks
least it
good.
looks nice.
Yeah. So I mean, it was pretty to look at for over 2 hours, but it just, yeah, it did not work for me. So I can't recommend that one.
I
One,
have not seen that one, but I am familiar with the author of the book, Donna Tartt. I didn't like the book of hers I read either. I don't know. She tends to write literary fiction with a capital L, so you know how that means.
yeah. So one that I can recommend is, I rewatched a 1993 movie on Vudu, streaming on Vudu, called Judgment Night. Now, do you know this one?
Is it a prequel to Terminator 2 Judgment Day?
No, unfortunately, no. It's
Does it star Judge Dredd?
no, this is a great Emilio Estevez is a family man, but they've got a young baby, and he hasn't been out of the house for a while, so he decides to go out with his friends. Cuba Gooding Jr., Jeremy Piven and his younger brother Steven Dorff. And
Wait,
and they're
that's Steven Dorff?
yes, that's Steven Dorff,
Nice.
the bad guy from Blade. And they're Jeremy Piven is just this kind of assholish character, and he rents a. He's this kind of a smarmy guy because he's Jeremy Piven, and and he rents this giant RV, and they're going to go into the city to go to a boxing match. Well, there's heavy traffic on the interstate, so they try to take a shortcut and end up in this abandoned, seedy part of the city, where the cops ignore you, and
Is this a Dusk Till Dawn scenario?
uh, there are no vampires, unfortunately.
I
Um,
think it would have made the movie better, that's for sure.
but but wait till you hear who is chasing them, because they witness him murdering someone. Is Dennis Leary and his gang.
Really?
Yes, and so I mean, it kind of plays like a slasher flick because they're running through the city. They can't get a hold of cops. Like nobody wants to help them because they're strangers in their area, and everyone knows it's a dangerous area anyway. So they're like, "How do we know you're not going to hurt us?" And all the while they have Dennis Leary and his bunch of goons like stalking them, and I really enjoy this movie. It's
Does Dennis Leary stop to do any stand up or
Not really, and he doesn't he doesn't do anything real. He doesn't try and ham it up too much. I actually kind of like some Dennis Leary movies. If you've ever seen The Ref,
I have not.
that's a great comedy where he breaks into a house and he's got everybody tied up. Kevin Spacey and I can't remember who plays the wife, and the family is so hateful to each other. And I think it's around either Thanksgiving or Christmas, and that they are so bickering that like they actually drive him crazy.
That's funny. That's a great premise.
Yeah, so that's a good one. But yeah, Judgment Night is just this really tense, fun '90s thriller. So
But not like a 90s sex thriller. It's not like
no,
based
no,
on
because no, we
Dennis
don't
Leary
want.
doesn't expose himself in a really short dress.
Thank God, no. Otherwise, I might not be recommending this movie.
Or you might give it an extra recommendation.
uh, but that's streaming on Vudu. Go watch it. Another one I can recommend, which I showed to another one we showed to our daughters, was Airplane.
Nice.
And I mean, everyone knows this one. It's great.
Hmm.
I'm sure there's, some of the jokes were a little risque for my 8 and 10-year-old, but they're
Some
the
of
kind
them
of joke.
haven't necessarily aged super well, but then most of them still land pretty well.
Yeah, and some of the jokes that are a little risque, I mean, they're going over the girls' heads. So,
Hmm.
but like, there's a lot of good visual gags, and there are a lot of jokes that still work in this. It is a very funny movie. Still works really well.
I
Um,
picked the wrong day to stop drinking.
I picked the wrong day to stop sniffing glue. Uh, Lloyd Bridges, I love it.
Hmm.
On Netflix, I watched a 2018 movie called Freaks. So, no, not the Todd Browning Freaks, which I have seen and is very bizarre.
Hmm.
This one is about Emil Hirsch. Him and his daughter are in a house, and it's just they're kind of hiding out there. It's almost like they're squatting there, and it turns out like you eventually find out that they have these powers, and it's like a kind of an intimate story of just a man and his daughter, and then Bruce Dern plays another character in the movie. What I won't get into it because I kind of liked this one, and I would recommend it. So I don't want to spoil it too much. It's an interesting little, just kind of the storyline of Magneto always humanity hates us because we've got powers and all this stuff, and it's basically a world where there are people with powers and humanity is afraid of them. So they either try and kill them or send them off to this mountain. They call it the mountain. And you find out that they're doing experiments there and all this stuff or whatever.
Oh, it's not actually it's not a school run by a friendly Patrick Stewart in a wheelchair.
No, no.
Well,
Um,
I'm disappointed.
but I really did like this one. It's fun to see these kind of superpower movies that are a lot more intimate. Like I said, it's just a man and his daughter, and then another guy outside the house. Like the daughter can never leave, and you find out what the man's power is and how that affects the outside world compared to inside the house. It's kind of interesting. The only problem that I had with the movie was the girls' powers were they seemed inconsistent to the way they worked depended on how they needed to progress the plot.
Oh,
So
okay. So she's pretty much a reality warper then. She can do whatever.
she had a specific power, but the extent of that power seemed to I don't know. Maybe if you thought about it, it could be that like she only because it's like she can see and project herself into other areas. And sometimes they can see her, sometimes they can't, but it might just be that she's allowing them to see her. So it might actually work. It seemed inconsistent and it seemed very like, oh, the plot right now needs the power to work this way because they don't really describe the powers, so it's more up to you to decide, oh, is it really that or is it just inconsistent for plot wise. But it was an interesting movie, and that one's streaming on Netflix. So if it
Hmm.
sounds interesting, I would go out and watch that.
I could not pick Emil Hirsch out of a lineup.
He's the guy from Speed Racer.
Oh, okay, maybe. Yeah, that makes it easier.
Uh,
That's
and
anime adaptation.
and I only have one more streaming movie that I watched, and this is another one that I'm gonna tell you to stay away from, but I have to talk about it.
Oh boy.
This is a movie called Greener Grass, and it's streaming on Hulu. Although I shouldn't tell you that because then you might go try and watch it. Don't watch this one. It's okay. Greener Grass. You obviously get what the title's referring to. The grass is always greener on the other side.
Oh, I
Uh,
thought it was about weed.
uh, I mean, that's another inference you could maybe take, but no, this is about. It's mostly about two women who are friends, and one of them is always envious of what the other one has, and is always trying to emulate or straight up take what she has.
Is this
And
a
the other,
talented Mr. Ripley situation?
uh, it's been a while since I've seen Talented Mr. Ripley. It's no, because she's not trying to. Well, I guess it kind of is, but they're friends. And the other woman who has all this stuff is one who's always eager to please. So the opening of the movie is they're both at a soccer game, and one of their kids is playing soccer, and they're sitting there, and one of them is holding a baby the whole time, and they're having a conversation, and then all of a sudden in the middle of the conversation the other one says, oh, I didn't even notice you have a new baby. And she says, yeah, I do. And she goes, oh, I love her. And the other one goes, do you want her? She's like, oh no, I couldn't. No, please take her. You can have her. And so she just gives her the baby, like literally, because the rest of the movie, the other woman has the baby. She takes it as her own, renames her. and
Weird.
and the thing is when she does that, the woman's response is she's holding the baby. She goes, are you sure I can have her? She seems to be really attracted, like she seems to really gravitate towards you. And the original mom says, oh, she just has to get used to you. I've had her since she was born, so she's used to me.
Bizarre.
There's another point in the movie where one of the woman who gave up her baby, she has one other child, and he falls into a pool and comes out a dog, and he's a dog the rest of the movie.
Is he a good boy?
Yeah, he's a good boy.
That's good.
But then, and as weird as this stuff is, and I'm laughing about it now because it's so stupid, and like it is. But when you're watching it, you're going, this should be funny because it's so bizarre, but it's just so stupid. But one part made me laugh because it was like I think it was trying to comment on television corrupting people or whatever. Because the woman comes down the stairs, one of the two main women, and her son is watching a show called Kids with Knives, and it just keeps focusing in on another kid, and it's someone with just a giant butcher knife. It's just like kids with knives, another kid with a big knife, kids with knives,
I'd
and
watch that.
and she's like yelling at the husband and going, hey, what is our kid watching? And the husband's sleeping on the couch. He goes, well, what happened to Little House on the Prairie? And the little boy watching the TV turns to him and goes, it ended. And so they get into an argument about him watching this garbage on TV. And the dad goes, "That's it. You're grounded." And he goes, and this is a little 10-year-old boy. He goes, "I don't care. You motherfuckers don't even let me drive anyway." Just that part cracked me up, but the rest of the movie is so non sequitur. Like I like the conceit, like the beginning of the movie where she just gives up the baby. I loved that because it was all about one person who's eager to please and the other person who wants what the other person has. And there's a lot of that going throughout the movie, but they have so many other random things like the kid turning into a dog, and one of the women gets pregnant, but it's just because she shoved a soccer ball up her shirt, and then she ends up having a baby that's a soccer ball.
Nice.
And it's the jokes like that that really dominate the movie, and it feels like a really long, overplayed SNL skit.
Hmm.
So I think it could have been a really funny movie if they would have stuck to the central premise and not put in the random stuff in there. So it just didn't work overall, but like it's so absurd and bizarre that I had to talk about it, even though I really highly don't recommend it. But I mean, if it sounds up your alley and you like long drawn out, overdone, overstayed their welcome SNL skits, then have at it. It's on Hulu.
Yeah, it almost reminds me of the Kristen Wiig Topper sketches.
I don't know those.
It's like whenever you said something, she had to top it in a certain way.
Oh, okay. I like Kristen Wiig,
Yeah.
but yeah, it just didn't work as a movie. I think it could have worked it could have even worked as a recurring SNL skit. But anyway, that's my last movie. What a one to end on, right?
I
And
guess.
we've been going pretty long, so I think we should sign off here. Let people know where they can find us. And
You can find me on Twitter at Noah_Saturn, SATERN.
I am at AwesomeKM on Twitter, and we are also on Instagram at We Don't Know What to Watch. You can email us at we don't know what to watch at gmail.com. And hopefully you've heard some movies in here that sound interesting to you. And also comment below and let us know what you've been watching recently, stuff that's on streaming, especially. Let us know if there's any good stuff on streaming that you would recommend for us, and maybe we'll talk about it next time.
Until then, you may ask yourself, my God, what have I done?
And I'm not sure. I watched Greener Grass. That's what I've done. Oh my God. What am I doing with my life?
Same as it ever was.